The journey of life is like a road. It's kind of like we're walking along a pathway. Now, Marilyn Monroe was an individual that many people look back and they see all the glory days. They see her posing nude for calendars, and she was the movie star. She was hooking up with Kennedy, allegedly, Frank Sinatra and others. She had all the fame, the money. I mean, everybody wanted to be like Marilyn Monroe, especially if you were a woman. But you know what? Where did Marilyn Monroe end up? A lot of times people are not aware of her end. Well, her last movie was called The Misfits, and it was with the star power individual of her day, Clark Gable, at her side. But because of drugs and alcohol and her life unraveling, you know what happened? She was late and tardy, and it caused all kinds of problems on the set. When they finally wrapped things up, she gets a divorce from the guy that she was with, Arthur Miller, and then all of a sudden, you know what's next? Clark Gable drops dead 2 days later. She feels the guilt. Was it her producing stress? She'd get out of a car. People would say, murderer, murderer. Marilyn Monroe's life was coming apart. So she decides, you know, what should I do? Well, eventually what happens is she continues down, down, down. They take her and they bring her to a hospital. They put her literally in a mental ward. And can you imagine this? Putting her in a padded cell. She's going berserk. She's taking a chair. She's slamming it into the door, which was double glass. She takes some of it and she's going to cut her wrist. She's going to kill herself. They grab her. They drag her down the hallway. Shrieks, groans, all kinds of bizarre happenings in this mental hospital until Joe DiMaggio comes, the baseball player, and finally gets her out. It wasn't too long after that more drugs, and she ends up in this kind of a trashy room, and they find her, and with all kinds of mystery about the end of her life, drugs, suicide, did somebody take her life? She looked horrible. But you know what? Today we have this glorious image. Why? She was on a pathway, and she made wrong choices. Recently, in the state of Tennessee, a football icon, McNair was his name, had his brains blown out by a woman that he was involved with, even though he was a married man. Well, recently on the front page of the paper, it gave some of the conversation, the texting between McNair and his so-called lover. It was shattering to read the accounts as she was saying to him, I'm having a hard time breathing. I don't know if I can sleep. I may have to go to a hospital. My chest, the problems, I just can't take it. And she's going through all of these things. Why was this happening to her? Eventually, she kills herself after she kills him. Weight, guilt. You see, the early days, it was one big glory trip, but then wrong choices brought that kind of an end. Some people wish that they could just stop and start all over again. Just rewind and do it again. I know, because I speak from the experience of somebody that had the opportunity to kind of back up and start again. See, I was once a lost soul. I played in a band, and we were a big-name group in the city that houses the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We were the Lost Souls, and I was lost. When I look back now, I see one of the guys that was in our band, he's dead. He never even reached the age of 30 because he didn't reach that point, like me, of being able to back up and go forward. We all have a conscience, and the conscience, it's kind of like a cube in your heart, and it rotates. And if you keep ignoring that cube, that scratch in your spirit when you're doing wrong things, then eventually you wear off the rough edges and you can find yourself in a very precarious way. I know that there is a new beginning and there's a fresh start that's available for all of us. I was once a lost soul, but I have found if you'll, number one, make right choices, because life is a series of choices. And then number two, remember that choices determine your destiny. And then number three, remember, choices have consequences. There's no way around it. Recently, Madonna was asked if she was ever going to marry again. She was married to Sean Penn and Guy Ritchie and, you know, all these relationships. But guess what? She said, I'd rather be run over by a train. She's had bad experiences. So many people have. Maybe you have. But I'm inviting you. There's a God who loves you. And he sent his son, Jesus Christ, who died on a cross in your place. If you will yield yourself to him, receive his forgiveness, he'll give you the peace, the new beginning, the forgiveness, and he'll enable you on this road of life to start making right decisions. It all begins with this one. What will you do with Jesus?